the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime
and the SJW district attorneys who don't prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
Well, hello there, everyone. Now, if you're a good boy and you keep up with my YouTube channel, then you're aware of the fact that the San Francisco District Attorney, George Gascon, is now trying to become the Los Angeles District Attorney. Because apparently Los Angeles, with all of its homeless problem, with the fact that one of its own prosecutors got typhus off of fleas from diseased rats, that apparently that's not tolerant enough. Los Angeles needs to be even softer on crime. And that's why he left San Francisco. He hopes to transform the nation's second largest city into something like San Francisco is right now. But that's not what this video is going to be about. You see, the new San Francisco District Attorney is now pledging to go even further than George Gascon, to decriminalize more things, to be more tolerant and soft on crime. Now, we've all seen the whole poop map thing. It's become a national joke and embarrassment that San Francisco is a place where homeless people constantly poop all over the sidewalk. It's a major nuisance and problem for people who live there or run businesses in the city. But now the people of San Francisco have something more to worry about than just stepping in shit. No, apparently there's going to be a lot more pee going around on the sidewalks there. From the Daily Caller, the headline: San Francisco's new DA, public urination will not be prosecuted. Bravo. Bravo. That's just what San Francisco needs to go with its poopy sidewalks. Now people can pee wherever they want. Now, if you're living in San Francisco and you stumbled upon my video because you're wondering, why is my city so disgusting? Why do none of my public officials seem to do anything, seem to care about anything? Why am I living in this leftist loony bin? Well, here's my advice to you. When you start eating dinner at night, I want you to start incorporating a lot of Brussels sprouts, asparagus into your meals. Just really overdo it with those veggies. And then when you get up in the morning, why not brew yourself a big thermos of coffee? Just drink a whole lot of coffee, eat your breakfast, maybe have some more leftover asparagus or Brussels sprouts. And don't go to the bathroom. No, don't do that. What instead you should do is walk on over to the San Francisco District Attorney's office. And right when you get right in front of the office where everyone walks inside, why don't you take a big old whiz right there on the sidewalk? Don't worry, you won't get in trouble. I mean, the article's right here. Public urination will not be prosecuted. I mean, that's what I would do if the people running my city started to implement some sort of stupid policy like this. But it's not just public urination. There's a whole list of things that he's not going to enforce. We will not prosecute cases involving quality of life crimes. Why? Do you not care about people's quality of life? Is quality of life no longer something that people living in San Francisco deserve? I don't understand this at all. So I guess the choice is between having a life that has quality or social justice, and people are supposed to live diminished lives to serve some sort of leftist agenda. I mean, this sentence just baffles me. We will not prosecute cases involving quality of life crimes. Why? That makes no sense. So what are these crimes? Crimes such as public camping. Oh yeah, just let people live in tents out on the sidewalks or in parks and stuff like that. There's no way that contributes to diseases, rats, and cockroaches. Absolutely disgusting, but apparently it will be tolerated in San Francisco from now on, if it's not already is, which I suspect it probably already was. offering or soliciting sex. Okay, so I guess having people just openly prostituting themselves anywhere in the city will be accepted. You know, really makes me want to be a tourist to San Francisco. Really makes me want to take my children over to see the Golden Gate Bridge where they might get solicited sex from prostitutes. Public urination, of course, when your city's already this disgusting, it makes sense to just legalize urination. Just let people use the sidewalk, the park, the street as their own personal toilet. I mean, if you're walking around in San Francisco now, I guess you just gotta assume that any surface that you touch is just covered in the urine of various transient people. The next thing is blocking a sidewalk. Is that completely unqualified? Like for how long is this permitted? Are you just perpetually allowed to block a sidewalk? Like if I just start building a house on the sidewalk, am I immune from prosecution then? I mean, he says that he's not going to prosecute anyone from blocking a sidewalk. Okay, so who is this guy? Who is this weird guy who's proposing all of this? And his name is Chesa Boudin. And you're probably asking yourself, well, what qualifies this guy to be San Francisco's next district attorney? Why is he a good choice to assume this position? Well, apparently he's got some real bona fide credentials, things that would really make you believe that he would do a good job as a prosecutor. You see, first and foremost, Chesa Boudin's parents were domestic terrorists. They belonged to the Weather Underground, and they were both convicted of murder. Yes, a big part of the reason Chesa Boudin got this position is because his parents were left-wing terrorists who killed people. That's not a joke. That's not, I'm not making this up. This isn't a conspiracy theory. His parents went to prison for murder. In fact, Boudin's father is still in prison. His mother was released, and they immediately offered her the position of a college professor, tenured, and she now makes more money than I do, substantially, and probably much more money than you do. But who says that crime doesn't pay? As long as you're bombing the right kind of people, it could pay off in the long run, just like it has for Chesa Boudin and his mother, at least. Boudin was raised by the leadership of the Weather Underground, which was the domestic terrorist organization responsible for those bombings, and specifically he was raised by Bill Ayers. Some of you may remember Bill Ayers. He came up in the 2008 presidential election because Barack Obama was apparently friends with him or had some sort of relationship with him. And it was a big scandal. It made Obama come across as this radical guy who has ties to a terrorist. And Obama certainly tried to separate himself from Bill Ayers. But in some place like San Francisco, rather than be a controversy, this is seen as a good thing. Like, oh, you're connected with terrorists, you were raised by a terrorist leader. Well, why don't we put you in the chief law enforcement position in the city of San Francisco? Why don't we have you run the prosecutor's office? Because that certainly would make sense, right? You want people with ties to terrorist groups whose family members have gone to prison for murdering people for purely political reasons. You want those people in charge of justice and law and order in your city. Of course, Chesa Boudin was endorsed by presidential candidate Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders is a complete, utter moron.
Oh, he's attacking Bernie Sanders again.
Don't attack Bernie.
His policy.
I mean, Sanders, I think last week he issued his immigration platform, and it was just completely nuts. It was like abolish ICE, no deportations for whatever reason. So someone like rapes someone and they're an illegal immigrant, they're not going to get deported. I think it included mandatory catch and release. So literally all someone has to do is walk across the border. They can't be arrested. They have to be allowed to stay and they'll never be deported. I mean, if Bernie Sanders becomes president and he enacts that policy, it's basically over for conservatives in the United States. Our country will just be utterly flooded with people. And I kind of feel like that's almost sort of inevitable at this point. And that's kind of how our government now works. Stuff can only get more liberal. It only can go in one direction. If you give people more rights and protections, those can never be taken away. And it's a lot harder to enforce the law than to do nothing. So for example, President Trump wants to build a wall or do all of these other things, and he just gets completely caught up in all this litigation. It's like in every US district court, and there's hundreds of them in the United States, the ACLU and leftist groups are filing lawsuits to sort of hamstring Trump, prevent him from doing what he wants to do. But the problem with it is that the same sort of apparatus is not able to be used to stop someone from not enforcing the law. So if Bernie Sanders becomes president and he just stops enforcing the immigration law, he just stops enforcing any sort of border control, well, that can't ever be characterized as violating anyone's rights. How could it be? A failure to enforce the law is never going to be violative of someone's rights. And therefore, we as a nation, and this is happening first and foremost in California, but I think it's going to start spreading to other places. And like I said, if someone crazy like Bernie does become president, it's going to rapidly accelerate. But the second that you stop enforcing the law, that you create this idea that, for example, homeless people have the right to camp on a sidewalk, or homeless people have the right to urinate in public or defecate on the sidewalk, once those become recognized as rights, once that sort of entrenched in our society, once people sort of swallow that pill, then that's never going to go away. It only goes in one direction. It's unfathomable to imagine an example where a district attorney comes into San Francisco and just radically rolls back all of this insane stuff. It's just not going to happen. What I'm curious with is, when does it get to the point that the institutions just fail? When does it get to the point that liberalism just collapses in on itself, where it just becomes unsustainable? It seems like California has been going closer and closer to the edge. And I'm real curious what's going to be the point where it's so close there that it just ends up falling off. I feel like it's getting closer and closer each day now. Well, if you live in San Francisco, you have my condolences. I would suggest you wear gloves and be very reluctant to touch anything. Especially don't pick up anything off the ground or touch the rails on the BART train or whatever they use for public transportation there. But that's about all I've got to say on this subject. If you like this video and you're not already subscribed to my channel, then please subscribe.